Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of another Dive in the Jukebox. Today, my guest is Sam Harman, the bassist for Vator, Haunt, and Workloud. Sam, thank you so much for
What's
being on
up?
the show. What's up?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Maria. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Yeah. So, my first question for you is how old are you?
I'm 29.
Okay. And were you born in California?
I've been born and raised Los Angeles,
Hmm. Nice.
Burbank specifically.
Oh, nice. Nice. Yeah, I came to Los Angeles when I was 18 back in 2010. And so I spent like my teenage years on the East Coast. And I mean, I fell in love with LA pretty much like the second I got here. And I've been here ever since.
Right on. Yeah, it's a wild city. It's not many like it, and that's either a good thing or a bad thing. It'll definitely chew you up and spit you out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely true. But it's also really exciting to live here. I mean, I personally find it really inspirational. And while so far living here has been quite a journey for me, I don't think I would ever actually leave it.
No, right on. Yeah, it's been hard for me too, especially with being able to see so many different places now that I've been touring for a little bit, So that's definitely in your mind as a musician, just because it does cost a lot to live here, but it is one of those love-hate things. I don't know if I could leave just yet either.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's definitely true. So is bass the only instrument you play?
The only one that I play well, or at least I like to think that I play it well. I started playing guitar when I was 10, so I have a little bit of like six string knowledge, not a ton where I would be like playing guitar in any other bands. I play trumpet also. I started playing that in middle school, and I don't, bass is definitely the focus of musician career, I guess you could say. But I do still bring it out every once in a while. We were messing around at a Void Vator rehearsal a couple weeks ago, and we joked about having a trumpet on the song, and it might have just been like too many beers and too much smoke, just because it was. I thought I could just like pick up the trumpet and just like do it, and it's obviously been a little bit. So we just
Yeah.
been messing around, trying to come up with new ideas, new sounds.
Yeah, a trumpet as fun and creative as that sounds in theory, I don't think that it would actually work in a heavy metal song.
No, it was more of a, yeah, it's like a background sound instead of a synth, just because we were just like demoing right then and there. You're right though, it's like heavy metal ska definitely don't blend for sure.
Hmm. True, true. And so you said you started playing like guitar when you were 10. And when did you switch to bass again?
I switched to bass when I was 15.
I see. Okay.
That was
Okay.
like 2009.
I see. Yeah. And how old were you when you joined your first band?
15. Yeah. That's kind of when 2009 is kind of when it all started to, I don't know about made sense, but I at least knew that I just wanted to play music, and that's been kind of it ever since.
Nice. Nice. Okay. Which bands or musicians inspired you? Like, what did you grow up listening to? And, like, specifically, what kind of music inspired you to play the stuff that you play today?
Johnny Roane made me want to start playing guitar. So that was, I mean, the Ramones, the Germs, and then Van Halen, Allman Brothers. This is all like as far as like elementary school. The Stones, Zeppelin, the Doors. I was a big Doors fan, which is weird because they didn't have a bass guitar, right? But Ray Manzarek, the sound he was able to make with that Fender keyboard through like a Bassman or whatever, it just the songwriting was pretty hip too. And Morrison is like, I mean, I'm at the Void Vator rehearsal space right now. We got him up on the wall over here
Oh,
too.
yeah.
So he's a rock and roll inspiration to lots of different people, more than just music, just how you live your life, right? And
Mhm.
then once I got to high school, I had friends that were getting more into metal, and you just start to get more angry as you come into out of your adolescence and into your teenage years. So metal just kind of spoke to me as far as Metallica and Megadeth and Pantera and Anthrax, and even like heavy shit like Arch Enemy and stuff like that for sure. Um, But what really like drew me to bass was Sly and the Family Stone, their bass player Larry Graham, who's credited with like kind of inventing slap bass. So he's probably my biggest influence, which is weird because he's not like a metal forward guy, which I know that's like most of the bands I play with are metal bands. But he's just always had like a heavy groove about him, 60s and 70s. So that's something that I've been able to kind of bring to the bands that I play with, which I think is cool, you know. So like Cliff from Metallica too. Larry and Cliff are like my two guys. So that's like kind of the goal for me is to if I can like fuse both of those together and whatever I'm doing, I think I'm doing all right, you know. But even like Rick Danko from the band, Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy, Bill Church from Montrose, and Sammy Hagar's band. Bill used to play with Van Morrison for a little bit too. Michael Anthony from Van Halen, I think he's underrated because he sings better than Dave does for sure. I don't know about better than Sammy, but a lot of those high notes are on live recordings are Mike for sure, you know.
Mhm.
Um, growing up in Los Angeles, lots of friends listen to like hip hop and stuff. So that was something that as like a bass player, I think I was able to get behind more than other musicians in like my friend circle as far as rock and metal guys. And so I think that plays a role a little bit. But again, that goes back to like Sly and the Family Stone and where those hip hop roots come from. So I credit Larry Graham to a lot of that kind of stuff too. Bootsy Collins from Funkadelic, all that kind of stuff, you know.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely a long list. And like speaking of the Doors, I actually got really into them myself over the last couple of years. And I remember that a couple of years ago, I did a series of posts for another Dime in the Jukebox where I wrote about all of these spots in Los Angeles that have to do with the Doors one way or another. Like there's the
Mm-hmm.
Cienega Motel where Jim Morrison had his own room and like which is still there. Speaking of which,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I should definitely stay there sometime. The Barney's Beanery in West Hollywood on Santa Monica Boulevard, where that
Oh yeah.
frequented a lot. I love that place. There is a restaurant, someplace on Santa Monica Boulevard, that used to be a Doors recording studio, like way back in the 60s.
Oh wild.
So, yeah. And of course, Love Street, all the way up to
Yeah.
Canyon. I love to visit that place. Like obviously the convenience store that Drew Morrison used to frequent like all the time when he lived there with Pamela Corson. It's a very special place.
There's a pretty cool mural of Jim and Pam in Burbank. It's off San Fernando, just like south of like downtown Burbank, as far as where like the that whole stretch of the movie theater and all the shops and mall and all that kind of stuff. If you've never seen it, it's pretty cool.
I should definitely make it out to Burbank sometime because I have been in Los Angeles since like 2010, so for the past 13 years, and I have got to make it out to neighborhoods that are not within the LA area because I frequent West Hollywood a lot. I've been to Santa Monica plenty of times. I am just now like discovering Malibu.
Right on, yeah, gorgeous out there.
Yeah, so like there is definitely a lot to do in this area, but I should make it out to Burbank sometime. I've been to the Valley a few times, like mainly because well, my friend has a band who played at this little dive bar in the Valley a couple of times. I saw them there
Mm-hmm.
like over the past year. And so like in my personal opinion, like um the valley seems kind of empty compared to like the West Los Angeles area specifically. But I should definitely make it out to Burbank sometime.
Yeah, it's just more sprawled out. I would say the Valley versus the West Side. Los Angeles in general is you know the county itself is huge versus most major cities as far as San Francisco, Chicago,
Hmm.
New York. I mean, San Diego's, but I wouldn't equate San Diego to all those other types of cities. LA is one of those. It's a sprawling metropolis for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties, I think, but oh, all clear. Yeah, I thought maybe it was on my end, but I just checked my Wi-Fi connection and it seems to be like, yeah, I'm connected to the right server. So, but we're all clear now.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so so next question: how did you start playing with Vator? And what was the whole experience basically of you joining the band?
I started playing in Void Vator because Eric Kluber at the time, he reached out to me saying that he was in a band that needed a bass player, and this was 2017, I think, as far as when I like ended up joining. But he'd asked me a year prior to that in 2016. Ran into him at the Viper Room one night, and he asked if I wanted to play then. And at the time, I was in a couple of different bands and wasn't really looking to join another original band. And a year later, when he'd asked me those bands, I was only playing in one of them, and wasn't like super stoked on. I was just kind of trying to stay busy. So this was a new band that um, seemed like it was just like a new situation, just something new to come into. And there was a show where Void Vator played with only three members, as far as Kluber playing bass, and at the time Armand playing drums, Lucas singing and playing guitar. And Eric had sent me the songs just as far as like listen to them, check it out, let me know what you think. And after seeing them, I was like, yeah, this would be cool. They obviously need a bass player. Uh, and so it was pretty seamless at first. Like I just had saw Lucas at the show and said like, Luke, Eric sent me those tunes. I'm gonna learn them and I'll see you at rehearsal on whatever it was, that Monday or Tuesday. Uh, and so those early years were wild, man. I mean, it was cool to be in a band where you start out playing in Los Angeles and you obviously grow and are able to get on tour. And we've been around the country to all sorts of different places, and so it's been a really cool experience because it's launched all sorts of other opportunities for me for sure.
Hmm, nice, nice. Yeah, and obviously it's like Void Vator is like your main project right now. Like I know that you're like in Haunt and Work Loud, but I mean obviously you've been with them for such a long time.
Yeah, six. I guess it's coming up on right 6 years. Yeah, 6 years coming up on seven this next year. It's
Yeah.
a band that I've had the most involvement in, or that I've worked the most in. It's I'm not a founding member, right? So even in the beginning, once joining, like most bands have a person or a figure that it's like their vision. Uh, there's not a lot of bands in my experience that like just kind of pop up and it's like four dudes. It's like super democratic. There's usually like a key songwriter or something like that. So Void Vader is definitely one of those situations where it's Lucas's deal, and so I've been lucky to be a part of that for sure. But it's one of those things that I'm as much a member in these other bands now as Void Vader, in the sense that I contribute in the same types of ways, right? So it's a lot to juggle for sure, but that's why I'm here, is to play music, and be a
Well,
part of these situations, something greater than yourself.
yeah, of course. And like honestly, it's amazing that you're able to juggle so like well, you're only in three projects currently, but even that is already like kind of seems like a lot to me. And it's really great that you're able to juggle these three different projects. And I mean, you were recently able to go on tour with Haunt. Is that right?
Yeah, we got back in the middle of April. I'm trying to think when that last show was. Yeah, but I'm getting ready to go back out with them on. I leave Sunday. We do rehearsals, and then we start driving to Nebraska on the 22nd. So that's a tour with Haunt and Hellfire that goes to the East Coast and the South, and no Los Angeles date, but we're definitely playing in San Diego. So if you're listening to this, come on out, man. It should be a good tour.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I don't think that I'm gonna be able to make it all the way out to San Diego, seeing as to how I don't drive. And also in just a couple of weeks, I'm gonna start classes at Santa Monica College. It's going to be my last semester there. And this fall semester I'm going to have four classes. So
Full load. Well, good for you. Best of luck with that.
thank you. Thank you. I'm very excited. I'm going to be receiving my associates in journalism after this semester, and it's definitely been a really great journey, and I'm really excited to finally make this last push. So yeah, I'm going to be way too busy to even like come out to. I think I'm going to be too busy to even go out in Los Angeles. Like at least as not like as much as I would have liked to.
Yeah. Well, good for you. That's how you, get further ahead in whatever the goal is, right? You gotta put on the blinders and block out the distractions because there's a lot of them in town. There's always something going on.
Absolutely. And that's definitely very, very true. Very true. Okay, so my next question is, hmm, so I just saw a Void Vator show at, oh my God, how does the name of that club like is escaping me right now? The one in Santa,
Knucklehead.
huh?
Knucklehead.
Knucklehead. Yes, exactly. So I just saw the Void Vator show at Knucklehead on Santa Monica Boulevard this past Sunday. And you guys are going to
Mhm.
be playing another show at Boyle Heights tonight, which I'm also going to.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, great. We'll see you
Um,
there.
so yes, and so my so my question is, what's Void Vator up to right now? Aren't you guys currently working on a new album?
We're working on a lot of new music. Not so much, album makes it seem like it's closer to being done than it is. We're definitely in kind of a rebuilding period, especially since we've got two new members in the band. Garrett Bauer replacing Eric, and Will, who's a new drummer of ours that had to replace Santi just because Santi was doing stuff with the Dead Kennedys, and without getting like too crazy into it, it just was he wasn't physically around. He was touring a lot. So at the time, it was just a change that needed to be made. So in that, we're kind of just trying to rediscover the sound of this band. This band has definitely had a lot of lineup changes throughout its time, and so we're trying not to like limit too much of it. I mean, I'm a metalhead at heart, man. So I think I'll always want there to be some sort of metal edge in Void Vator. But these newer songs that we're kind of writing, it's not so straight up. I mean, people I mean, Void Vator has at a time had some thrash elements to it for sure, especially Great Fear Rising. But so I don't know how much of that sound will be back, which is a weird and scary thing for this band. But it's just kind of part of the deal, man. You just play music and be creative and find ways to for you to be stoked on what you're coming up with. Because if you're doing it for any other reason, there's not much of a point.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So basically, you guys are gonna have like a new sound that's gonna be more melodic than what it used to be.
We're kind of figuring it out, man. I mean, we definitely all of these influences, as far as on my end that I was talking about. There's Garrett and Will and Lucas's too. We're all Will's a big his kind of drumming style is that of like John Bonham and Zeppelin, and he's a big Chad Smith guy from the Chili Peppers, which it's not. I don't think Void Vator is going to start sounding like the Chili Peppers, but Jad's drumming style is pretty versatile just as far as or I guess I should just say Will's drumming style. It's been an easy fit, and sometimes and as a bass player, since it's important for the rhythm section to lock up. That was something early on that was like it wasn't like too hard of work to lock in with Will. Sometimes when you have a drummer in, it feels like work. It is work. So that's like a hard thing to build off of and be creative when just to like keep time or have like a tight pulse. It's not as easy as it should be. So thankfully with Will, that's easy. And so some of these songs that we're writing have like a punk edge to them, which Void Vaders has a couple tunes that have like a punk edge to them. But I also just think that we're just kind of writing all these different types of ideas. I think we'll probably take a page out of some old favorites of ours. As far as a lot of bands, Pantera and Metallica, they would write 20 to 30 songs or something like that and then slim it down from there. So we're just kind of taking it as it comes. This show tonight in East LA, and then we've got another one in Garden Grove opening up for a Linkin Park tribute that some friends of ours are in.
Hmm.
At the Garden Amp, which that's November 19th. That's a Sunday. So and that'll be cool to play a venue like that because that's a big space, and that in the end has lots of fans. And I'm hoping some Orange County and LA people come out on our end just because it's been a minute since we've been over there.
I see. Okay, and where is that show that's gonna be happening in November gonna be at again?
The Garden Amphitheater, Garden Amp.
Oh, okay, it's in Garden Grove. Yeah, I'm just trying to see like how far away that is from me. Ooh,
It's
yeah,
definitely in Orange County. Yeah, it's
yeah.
not Los Angeles County.
I'm not gonna be able to make it to that one, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's all good. But after those shows, there's definitely not anything booked, and I don't know how soon before Vator will play again, especially because there's all this kind of songwriting that's going on. Um, that's just kind of how this band works, as far as like we just kind of focus on one thing at a time. So
Yeah. Yeah, and like in my past experience with like going to your like as far as going to your shows goes, I have been seeing you guys play live for about 2 years now. In fact, it's going to be exactly 2 years at the end of September, because I remember that the very first show of yours that I went to, it was at the end of September of 2021.
sounds like Permanent Records or something like that.
Definitely not Permanent Records. The name of the club starts
Uh,
with the letter D. Um,
Here in Los Angeles, it started with a D.
yes, it like in the downtown LA area, like close to that area. Um,
I'm usually good with stuff like this too. Redwood. Uh,
would that happened this past February? That's when you guys played the Redwood.
yeah, I'm just trying to remember venues. There's a place called Que Sera that we played. That sounds like around 2021. You remember like band members? I mean, it's what if
It was
you
back.
want to like lock it down.
It was back when Eric was still with you guys.
You remember it was Santi drumming? Was Joey drumming?
And I believe that Joey was still your
Would
drummer.
uh, where would that have been? Yeah, I don't know. I'll
Yeah,
I'll you know I'll
I'm
I'll
gonna
dig and figure it out.
exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna look it up later. Yeah, but basically,
Viper Room.
no, definitely
Uh,
room.
I'm trying to think all the venues that we played with Joey.
It started
Yeah,
with
I don't know.
that's what it started with. But yeah, it's escaping me right now. But I will look it up later. And so yeah, basically, um, my point is, I have been going to like your shows for long enough now to know that you don't play in LA very often. You only ever like play in Los Angeles like once. Well, it's like a few times a year at this point.
That's definitely right.
Yeah, and I remember that when I asked Lucas about that in my interview with him, like almost a year ago. Like I asked him, how come you guys don't play in Los Angeles like more often? And he said that, well, because it's kind of like good to leave some space gaps between the shows, just so that like the audience like won't get tired of you guys, and just so that like basically it's better for the band if the shows are like more sporadic. Yeah. So
Yeah, it comes. Yeah, it's several different things. It's hard. The level that we're at, it's hard to play Los Angeles all the time because there are so many bands, and you kind of saturate your fan base as far as like you don't want people to say they're just going to catch you next time. You want them to see you every time, and whether that means you play a lot or play a little, that's up to the band. But it's definitely easier to get people to come more often from a numbers game, right? If you just don't play as often,
mhm.
the it's one of those things that there's hard to make money in Los Angeles. That's why we were touring so hard for a long time, was because to build upon the Void Vator right cause or empire or whatever, you gotta it takes some money, right? So there's more money to be made outside, and it's not like you got to go far outside of Los Angeles. You go an hour to Ventura, or that's just like a super close example. It's not like there's a gold mine in Ventura for bands, but it's just like the further you get out, the cost of living for people is less. There's more money to spend on merch or just fun at a bar or a venue or whatever, right?
Mhm.
So it's tough. Yeah, and there's lots of it's hard to prove yourself in Los Angeles. Everybody doesn't seem to really care about what's going on until you have all these stamps of approval from other things, whether it's a record label or a tour that's you're going to another place, right? Like they just want some sort of validation from other people that you're cool enough or whatever, which is like that's part of Los Angeles, right? This whole city was built on like you can come from wherever in the world and be somebody completely different. So, which that's a good thing, bad thing, it's whatever, but people seem to vibe off of authenticity as far as longevity versus like flavor of the month here something for like 3 years and then we're out, you know. So it's like I said earlier, this town will spit you up and chew you out, but the or chew you up and spit you out, not the other way around. But it makes a hell of a musician for sure, or just work ethic, or you know, this it's always going to be hard. It's never not going to be hard. The whole reason you start playing music or trying to be a musician is not because it's easy and there's always work to be done, you know. So it's just about consistency and getting back up when you get your knocked on your ass, because that happens a lot too, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, that definitely makes sense. Yeah, and actually, so it reminds me of, I remember a couple of years ago, I went to see a friend's band play at the Viper Room. And like the whole band at one point was basically talking about how when they play in cities outside of Los Angeles, the crowd seems to be like a bit more excited about the music, actually a lot more excited about the music than people are in LA. And it's like if they play outside of LA, they actually see people in the audience like actively listening to the musicians as opposed to like being on their phone all the time or like talking to their friends. And like
Yeah.
and the audience seems to be like a lot more excited about like the whole concept of just like seeing a band play live. And I guess that with LA, because there are so many, like there are literally so many clubs out here, and there are so many things to go to and so many shows to see, that maybe at this point people have gotten like a little bit spoiled. It's like you can literally go out to hear live music every single day, like if you have enough money. Like there's literally
For
some.
sure. And I think it's more of just like people just think you're supposed to act like you're from Los Angeles. Like most people in Los Angeles are not from Los Angeles, and there's not anything wrong with that. But if you're just going to act like you think you're supposed to, and that's not good, or it's not cool, then that's not good. Right. So that's like a struggle within just living out here, or just like, I mean, heavy metal, rock and roll in general too. Like a lot of people just think you're supposed to act a certain way because that's part of like your personality or like what you're supposed to be like. And that's definitely something that's more equated to Los Angeles and the rest of the country. You know, I think in most metropolitan areas, there's lots of places where it's like, I'm from here, my shit don't stink, which, you know, there's some, I don't know if truth to it is the right word, because there's I don't think anybody's like better than anybody, just like face value, just like boom, I'm just like, what's up, you know? But there's a lot of that out here. So that's part of why we are in the circles that we're in as far as rock and roll heavy metal, is just because like middle fingers in the air to that type of attitude, you know, like it's not, that's not cool. That's not a way to live your life. Personally, I don't think so, you know. So you can, but like that's, you know, again, like somebody's got their arms folded or they're not looking at you, or like people just start walking out. It's like it's, you're a glutton for punishment, man. Playing music is eternally humbling. And the same way that you have a show like that, you'll have a show that there's, you know, 400 people, 500 people, 600 people, and then the next week, if you're at least in my situation, a working musician, right, like you'll play in a bar and that's that, you know. It's not there's a lot of different ways to be a musician. I just like to play, so that's why I play with so many different people, you know. I had a gig last night, Vator's got a gig tonight, I'll have another gig Friday before I leave for tour, you know. So
Yeah, it's definitely just about playing music. Well, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, if it's your passion, then it's something that like you should continue to do, because like something that I mean, I've had well, I have been doing recorded interviews for another Dime In The Jukebox for almost a year now. It's going to be exactly 1 year this September. And at this point, I only have like 6 or 8 followers on my YouTube page. And that's not going to stop me from doing this. I'm definitely still going to reach out to people, do interviews, and because I know that with time, it's only going to get better. And it's if it's something that you really love, and if it's something that you believe you should be doing, then just continue doing it. And you know what? Success is eventually going to come.
so Yeah, social media is one of those things too that there's like no like one way to crack it, right? It part of the deal is like it changes so often as far as like how what content you're being fed, right? Like your algorithm, everybody uses that word, so that adapts and changes constantly based on what you're looking at or what the platforms want you to look at, right? So like you can't use it as a be all end all tool or metric for like how your success is going, you know, like you said, just keep grinding, and that's more of the those results are more gratifying anyway too versus like dang, this person started following me, which is always tight, right? Like those little like ego boosts. It's like it just kind of is like validation that you are reaching the people that you want to, right? Because like you could have 500 followers of people that you don't know, and that doesn't matter as much as like I don't know if you specifically have a music journalist that you like or a musician that you like or whatever, right? Like that for you personally, that's like a more gratifying thing. At least I would think for me it is too, which is like a funny thing to say because those other 500 people like definitely need you, definitely help me get to me where I'm at or get this other person's attention, right? So it's um it's a weird one, social media, man. I used to be like super obsessed and obsessive about it, and thankfully I found a way to make it work a little more for me than like trying to just figure it all out because it is like it is the same way that MTV started dropping music videos or like even like way further back when like television first came around and people were like no it's all about radio. This is like a similar situation where people are like no like go back to the movie theaters, go back to live music versus like Instagram, TikTok, all that type of stuff, which I agree with. I would much rather go to a drive-in movie or any of that type of shit versus like let me just stream Rancid at Coachella, which like that's not the same type of thing, man. You know. So, but it's a new. We live in a new world, dude. There's so much more technology and people, and you have access to so much more. And for some people, that's enough. Is just being able to see it versus experiencing it. You know, which is why like playing rock and roll like you're selling something, you're trying to show people that this is different or it's yeah it is different than what they're used to, you know. So that's where my head goes with all that type of stuff is like you just kind of spreading the word one show at a time.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and like me with I mean with my recorded interviews, I'm just trying to learn as much as I can about. So far, I have been mostly interviewing local and late musicians. So, and I am trying to learn as much as I can about them, one interview at a time, because I have been going to like see these people's music for like years now, and pretty much most of the people I've interviewed so far, they are like 90% of them, I'd say, they're like musicians in bands that I've been seeing for years in Los Angeles. At this,
Mhm.
I have interviewed, my first interview was actually a photographer who took pictures of grunge rock stars like back in the early 90s. And she took pictures of Pearl Jam. She was friends with Kurt Cobain. He was actually her, like, he was a roadie for like one band, I think, and she was hanging out with him. So it was like supremely cool for me to talk to someone like that. So yeah.
Yeah, those types of people are just as important in any sort of music scene because the same way that like this is a funny comparison, but like the same way that like you're growing up in high school and you want to be in bands or people want to be in bands, you need people that want to spread the word of music, not just by playing it, but by taking pictures, by interviewing people, by doing art for those bands, by what it, you know, there's so many levels to all of this that like are part of a community when it comes to music, right? So that's those types of people are sometimes people that have a perspective that most people don't, you know, which so that's really cool that you get to this situation specifically, but in general, like those types of people are pretty rad, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm. Okay. My next question is, how and when did you join WarCloud?
I joined Cloud in 2019, I believe, September, November of that year. I met Cloud through Vator. We played a show at the Hi Hat, which is not around anymore. It's called the Goldfish. We Vator played a show with Cloud, Here Lies Man, which is a band on Riding Easy Records here in town, and then Yagikian, which is I've known Alexi from Yagikian for a very long time.
Uh-huh.
And so met Alex at that show. He's the lead singer, guitar player in that band, and I would say he's like the captain of the War Cloud ship. The way that Lucas is the creative force behind Void Vator. I wouldn't. Lucas is pretty open to like if there's something that he's not the guy that's got to book the show. He's not the guy that's got to talk to promoters, right? Whatever. In fact, he would rather not do that. So two different styles of manning a ship, right? As far as the creative force and the logistics kind of thing. And so met them because their bass player at the time wasn't working, and so we were toying with the idea again, like moving to Oakland. I say again because I'm talking about like leaving Los Angeles and going to these other places and moving, and that was the first time where I'd had to like contemplate something like that, just to like what it would be like, and how serious am I about this music thing? Is this lots of different options, and so I didn't move up there, but it was a type of thing where it's like, let's see if we can make this work, right? So I think the first time that we toured together, I learned the set and took a Greyhound bus up to Oakland, and we practiced as a 3-piece. And at that time, Nick Burks, who's the lead guitar player, at that time he was living in Fort Wayne, Indiana, or maybe he was living in Louisville. So he was like coming out from the Midwest to the West Coast to play. And so I didn't play with him until that first show. So that was a pretty like wild experience as far as like learn the tunes, get in the bus, play with the band, get to the show. Here's the new guitar play. Like the whole thing was just like, this is wild, you know. The way that like only cover bands that I had been in operate, as far as like just fly and know the songs, and War Cloud's definitely not like a cover band, but that was like the only type of experience I had in that situation. So it was a trip to be in a metal band where it was like everybody's on their game enough to be like, we don't need 900 rehearsals and then go on tour. Like if everybody does their homework, then it's all good. So that's how that band's been ever since. And now War Cloud's based out of Texas. Nick lives in Atlanta. Joaquin, the drummer, and Alex both live in Texas. And so I'll be out there with them. September 17th is when I fly in, some rehearsals for a couple of days. And then we've got 4 shows out there: Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, and Austin for Ripple Fest, which is the label that War Cloud's on, same label that Void Vator's released our 2 records with. So it gets pretty like, interconnected a little bit. But War Cloud's taking me to Europe, man, and I'll that's an experience I'll never forget, and I got lots of love for those dudes. I laughed some of the hardest I've ever laughed with them, like hanging out with them on tours. You got about 30 seconds before like somebody's sides are hurt because you're laughing too hard. It's one of those things where it's just like you wake up and you don't even need coffee because you're just cackling.
Hmm. That's awesome. Yes. So War Cloud is based in Texas now. Huh.
Austin, Texas.
I see. Yeah, that's really too bad because I mean, the first time that I saw you guys live, it was at Maui Sugar Mill Saloon, maybe like a year ago, a year or two ago. I don't remember exactly, but I had a lot of fun rocking out to your covers. I remember that. I had a great time at that show, and I think the first time that I saw you guys live actually may have been 2 years ago. And then I probably saw you at Maui Sugar Mill again, like a few months later or something like
Right
that.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, love Weapons back at the Sugar Mill this Friday for sure.
Uh-huh. Oh. Oh my gosh, yes, that's gonna be tomorrow, right?
That is tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You told me about that show when I talked to you at Knucklehead. Yeah, but
Hmm.
unfortunately I'm not gonna be able to make it to
No,
that
it's all good.
yeah.
I gotta play them all. You don't have to go to them all. That's kind of how being like, the
I
musician works.
I know that I don't have to go to the mall, but the thing is, I kind of want to. Like, if it was up to me, I would like literally go out to hear live music every single night.
Oh, I hear you, dude. I
Yeah.
always get tweaked when I'm on tour and I see a show in town that's like, fuck, that would be so sick to go to.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I mean, the good thing about Los Angeles is that there is always going to be something going on. Like, no matter how long you wait.
Yeah, no, there's
Oh, yeah. Like you can,
every corner of this town, there's all sorts of stuff.
exactly. Yeah, I like to say that you can throw a rock out the window and hit a band performing at a club.
Yeah, for sure. But people need to go to those clubs that they're throwing rocks at, man, because if people don't go to shows and it all goes away, like
Mhm.
it's a very real thing. There hasn't been I feel like there hasn't been a very like cohesive music scene in this town, and coming up on, I don't want to say 10 years because I feel like 2013 to 16 was like the heyday of the music scene in Los Angeles that I was a part of, but it doesn't mean that just was like that time. I don't think it's, in every heyday everybody's got, that just means like when you were there, when it was like crazy. So 2016 and now coming up on 6 years, 7 years, it's pretty crazy. So that's, we're due for some sort of change. That's all I mean by that. So if people go to shows and like support bands that you dig and seek out music that you haven't heard before, and doesn't got to be a forum show all the time. It's, we need people in clubs going to rock shows, man. That's it's fun, I promise. It's not like there's nothing to be scared of, and even if you are a little scared, that's okay. Sometimes that's fun.
Yeah, well, I personally was never really scared. And it's like funny to me how you said that the heyday for like the live music scene was 2013 to 2016, because I actually started going out like on a regular basis at least after 2016, because that was when I graduated college, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden like, you have more time to go out. You kind of have more money too because I started working like pretty much right after graduation. And so I mean, obviously my mother contributed to my finances, but like when you're getting a paycheck, like it also adds to that, so you're more free to like go out on this.
Oh, dude,
And
I hear you.
yeah, and so, and like honestly back then I did not feel like there was some sort of like a shortage when it comes to like going out and hearing live music. I mean, every single place I went to, it was packed or like almost packed. Like I was never like
Yeah.
a club where it's empty unless it's like some little dive bar in, I don't know. I don't think I've ever even been to a place like that. Like every single show that I've been to, it was mostly around like the West Hollywood or Santa Monica area. There are some pretty great clubs
Hmm.
down there, and it's always been pretty packed. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, man. I mean, it's they were, those times were, this is when like Loaded was still around, when the Dragonfly was having stuff like pretty regularly. Now it's, they don't have a lot of shows over there anymore. I feel like there's more shootings than shows over at that part of Santa Monica. What else? I mean, the Viper was like that's when like the Viper Room was like, I don't know. It's like a trip to think that like that part of the strip had like another bit of life. Like not so much the Whiskey Roxy and even like the Key Club was long gone by that point, but like the Viper, we just had a tight crew over there. Everybody, we were like super, I mean, still to this day super tight with Rita. This is all before Tommy Black was the GM. He was still playing with Scott Weiland and Tendon Bar and whatever. He wasn't really like booking or like running a club. So there was just more debauchery because there weren't so many people in higher positions, right? We just all could like, it's just less responsibility. I was 19 using a fake ID that said I was 270 pounds. It's just insanity. So you're just trying to like, and those bands at the time too. This is like Diamond Lane and Legal Tender and Future Villains and Desecrate and Fire the Animal and Cast of Kings and the Shrill was like a little before my time. But I got to see them during that time because there's just like all these bands in Los Angeles that like a lot of people hadn't heard of, but if you were there, it was like pretty fucking cool. Ascendancy, which that was the band that Garrett was playing in, a thrash band before Void Vator. That's how I know Garrett, is because the band I played in at the this was like when I first band I was in when I was 15, like 2009 to probably until like 2016 or something like that, like long ass time. Maybe not 2016. I don't know. 14, 15, something like that. So that's how I met Garrett. And so that's, yeah, go see shows, go tell your friends bands that they're good or they're not good and they need to sound better or whatever. Motivate them to like go practice and do stuff. Band people can be lazy. Not everybody's got like a killer work ethic. So like when it's hard, people get discouraged, but if it's hard and it's fun, then it's like, I'm still down to show up. too people get too burnt out too easy, I feel like. So go talk to people about something at a show. It doesn't have to be like anything weird. Just say what's up.
Well, that's what I intend to do tonight. Yeah. So speaking of the Viper Room, I was gonna say I've noticed that lately, every single time I go there, I always end up finding people to talk to. I mean, granted, I haven't over the past year, I have probably been to the Viper Room like 2 to 3 times maybe. My last
Mm-hmm.
time there was at the end of this past, like at the end of July, just maybe like a couple of weeks ago. um and I ended up talking to a whole bunch of these musicians who were like they were from Argentina and Italy. It was like a mix of like people from like all over the world basically, and all of them were like all in one band that performed downstairs. And I mean, the music was awesome. I remember specifically that their band's name was Carla, after their lead singer, who sounded amazing, by the way. And like, even though I didn't even like get any numbers from people, they still ended up like having great conversations, just like talking about like whatever. And I
You
remember
know?
I did make one friend last year at the Viper Room when my friend's band was playing there, and I remember the exact date. It was on October 6th. And I just got to the club. I was like hanging out, like getting ready to see my friend's band perform. It was before my friend even got there. I just like I met this guy who's a music journalist, and we started talking, and like we exchanged numbers and stuff. And we always keep saying how we're gonna hang out, but it hasn't happened yet because he's so busy, and like I've been busy too. But it's still
That's
really
that's the thing about this town for sure too, is like even if somebody's only like 5 miles from you, it's tough to even just link up because you got to do a lot to live out here, and then just getting across town sometimes is like fuck that, which
yeah,
unfortunate
a lot
that's
to
like
happen, and
kind of
it's
a pooey way to view it for sure. But thankfully we've got, that's another good reason social media is tight, or just technology of this type in general, is like you can stay in touch without having to like be face to face, and get work done and progress your careers without having to like be in the space physically. But that always feels better, I feel like.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's definitely true. But yeah, the Viper Room is definitely a really like great place for sure, and I intend to go there more often. Like I said, mainly because last 3 times I've been there, I ended up like talking to more people than I have with like any other place that I went to. Well, with the exception of Knucklehead last Sunday, but like still, but that's not even going to be happening until I'm going to start working. Hopefully, knock on wood, in December, like in the winter of 2023, 2024. So, yep.
Right on.
Yeah. Okay. So my next question is, you just recently started playing with Haunt, like last spring. Is that when you
Yeah,
like?
I mean, I guess I'm trying to think like first rehearsal and stuff, probably like February or March.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, February, I guess, mid-Feb.
Okay. And how did you become a part of that project?
I met Trevor again through Void Vator. Void Vator had opened up for Haunt on a we did like a three day run, Fresno, Santa Cruz, and Sacramento, with another band from here in town called Fortress, which this last Sunday Entranced played, and the guitar player in Entranced is the same guitar player from In Fortress. Philly Biabano is his name. So shout out Philly. But that's how I met the dudes in Haunt, or at least Trevor, because the band that Void Vator met does not play with Trev. Like he's just got different musicians. Obviously, I'm one of them, so it's a different bass player. But yeah, met Trev through that, and we always kind of stayed in touch just because we're like metalheads that like to skateboard and laugh and get stoned, and just like we just kind of like clicked right away. And I had a lot of respect for him because he was doing it. He At the time, Rex wasn't born when we had met his son, but he was married and was playing music, and that's how he was making money, like enough money to have a wife and a house and not like be bitched at for being a musician, right? Like that's the to be able to support yourself as a musician in every endeavor. That was the goal, right? And so he I that's how was that's like where the respect came from, was being able to like you can buy his records online, and he knows how it comes to him, and the breakdown of like royalties, and just like he knew how to break down the music business where it didn't seem so like I'm just gonna get fucked, right? So I had a lot of respect for him from that, just that, and then obviously like all the other shit that we have in common. So we'd always stayed in touch, and even over like the pandemic at one point, he was just kind of planning for the return when shows were coming back, and there was a show or a tour with Hammerfall and Visigoth that Haunt was going to be a part of. And at that time he asked if if I was interested, and obviously it was all just like kind of up in the air because it was COVID pandemic 2020, right? We're just like kind of just figuring out how to go forward with it, and so that didn't happen. But yeah, this last like you said, spring, Trev reached out again. He just called me out of nowhere on a I was with my girlfriend Kaylee Saturday, Sunday. I think we were going to get beer to meet up with Garrett and his girlfriend Sarah, and we were just gonna kind of like hang out. And then Trev called, and I was like, I got something to do tomorrow. Like it was like where we can hang today, but I was like right up to Fresno to be in a music video with them, and we just clicked, all those dudes, both the Andys, the drummer's named Andy, and the other guitar player, his name is Andy. So I got nothing but love for those dudes. We have a lot of fun together, and it's cool to this style of music is like what I grew up playing, as far as Ozzy, Steve Harris, like Bob Daisley from Ozzy Osbourne, and just this that's like bass line specifically. Like I get it's the 16-year-old me is super stoked, but I'm also singing like a lot in this band. I'm like a backup singer 100% as far as like harmonies, and I sing on every song, and it's pushed me a lot as far as just being a better musician joining this band. So I'm thankful for that for sure.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like a very exciting project. And you answered that question for me earlier in the interview, but like I know that you went on tour with them as well, like in the spring, right? Yeah, and so
Yeah,
yeah,
March into April with Night Demon and Satan. We did a whole US tour, West Coast to East Coast and back. It was wild. We played some really cool festivals, and in Houston we played the Hells Heroes Festival in Houston, which if you've never heard of, you got to check it out because it's one of the it might be the best like heavy metal festival in the United States. I think it is. And we played another festival in Tulsa the first year of 2 minutes to Tulsa. That was a ballroom that had been in Tulsa, Oklahoma since like 1940. I don't know, 6, 7, something like that, like super long time. So I'm thankful to, this last tour we got to play some pretty cool venues just because the whole tour package was a package that warranted playing venues like that. So that was a pretty cool experience to just be on that type of tour.
yeah, absolutely. Definitely sounds really exciting. I gotta check out Haunt more. I think that like about a year and a half ago, I went to this club, the Zebulon, to
Mm-hmm.
check out let's see. I'm trying to remember the name of the band again, but let me just hmm. I went there to see Saber. That's what I went there to see.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Love those guys.
And I remember that Haunt was on the same bill. And I did not get there in time to see Saber because they performed earlier than I'm usually used to. Like when I go out, I usually head out like around 8 o'clock or so because like 9 p.m., 10 p.m., that's like when stuff that really starts to happen. And I had no idea that Saber's set would started at like 7 or 7:30 or something. And so by the
Yeah.
time I got to the club, they already went on. And but I didn't get to catch. I think the band that I saw playing was Haunt, but I gotta check them out because like I've heard of them. Like I know that you were associated with them, so like that's how that name sounds familiar to me. But I definitely gotta check out their music.
Yeah, if you dig Ozzy and Dokken and dual
Uh-huh.
guitar shred with some heavy metal, anthems, that's Haunt, man. It's a fun band to be a part of for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I have recently gotten like really really into Alice in Chains. I am almost through all
Oh
of their
yeah.
discography. Yeah, and I have kind of listened to like pretty much all of their albums over the course of the past couple of months or so. With like, I didn't listen to like all of their albums like at once in a row. I've had some
Yeah.
interest here and there. I would listen to other stuff, but my favorite song by Alice in Chains is definitely "Heaven Beside You."
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a,
That's that yeah, that Jar of Flies album is pretty wild.
oh yeah, yeah. Mm. Yeah, and yeah, so like I said, I have like maybe one or two more albums to listen to by Alice in Chains before I'm like totally done with their discography. And I've listened to most of Pantera because that's what Lucas recommended to me, like when him and I were talking about like heavy metal music at one point. And at this point, I gotta say, Pantera mostly sounds like a lot of noise to me, like it is really, really loud. But
Yeah, right.
I definitely like Alice in Chains more. Like it's more melodic. But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, there's definitely still a lot of like heavy metal stuff that I need to check out. Okay, we've been at this for like an hour. Do you still have more time? Are you like cool?
I got a little bit. I got to start getting ready for the show tonight, as far as like grabbing gear and heading back home and getting changed and all that kind of stuff. I got like about 20 more minutes probably.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, 20 minutes is cool. So yeah, in that case, I'm actually going to go ahead and jump to the last question I had for you because we talked about like a lot of things so far. And like so basically, what's next on the agenda for you with like all the bands that you're involved in? You already talked about like some of those things in your earlier answers, but I guess now I just kind of want like the gist.
No, yeah, let's dig in. Void Vator's got a show tonight. I leave Sunday for this next tour with Haunt. So I'll be gone with Haunt from, as far as the tour, it's the 23rd of this month, August, through September 14th. That tour ends in San Diego, but we're playing all over, shows in Brooklyn, shows in Nebraska, Chicago, Detroit, Atlanta, Georgia, outside of Orlando, Florida, and Winter Park, Pensacola. I know we're playing in Frederick, Maryland, San Antonio, Lafayette, Louisiana, with a band called Void from out there, which is like, that's my new favorite band that's playing heavy metal in the country right now. So Void, shout out Void in Lafayette. So a lot, yeah. Midas from Detroit. We're playing with them 2 shows, which will be rad. More in the Light, NT Arrows, CX in Connecticut, which will be super cool. That'll be like, if you're into heavy metal and you're in the tri-state area, that's one that's like super wild. But so I get back from that one on the 15th, and then I fly out on the 17th of September for War Cloud shows. And those 4 shows, War Cloud is playing with Kill the Lizard, which is a thrash band from Houston. And first show is in, believe the first show is in Dallas at Three Links with Kill the Lizard. Then we're playing in San Antonio at High Tones. That bill's pretty rad. That's Kill the Lizard, Sadistic and not Sadistic Intent, Sadistic Force, and Warlung, which Warlung is like Black Sabbath meets the Beatles from Houston, like full on like dual harmony the entire song. Like both Phil and George, the lead singers, guitar players, they're really talented. I'm like super jealous that their like sense of harmony is so strong. And then Houston, that's at Black Magic Social Club. That's a really cool club in Houston. The whole like backdrop of the stage is like a wall of skulls. So I played there a bunch. So that'll be cool. I think Hunt Hellfire are playing there in September, and then I'll be there like twice in September at that same club in Houston. So it'll be cool to see all those guys. This dude John Black, who used to play in a band called Whorehound that Void Vator played with in Houston the first time we went to Houston. So shout out John for that. And then the last show with War Cloud on that run is at Ripple Fest, which is at the Far Out Lounge. We're playing the Saturday show, and that'll be cool to see everybody from that part of the music world, because Void Vator has played the last 2. And so this year I'm doing it with War Cloud, so it'll be cool for all that. After that, I'm trying to think as far as like Void Vator stuff. Void Vator's got that show in November 19th at the Garden Amp, opening up for In the End. And Haunt's already announced one show in Europe for this next year in the Czech Republic. So I'll be going back to Europe with Haunt 2024, like February, March. I don't know too much more other than there's like one tour announced, so that's pretty exciting.
Hmm.
And that's all I can really talk about. Haunt's got another tour in the works for literally like a year away, like August of 2024. But it's not. I don't even want to talk about it because there's no art, no venues. It's not like for sure yet. It's just up in the air right now. But it'd be cool. Hope, fingers crossed, it all works out. And that's all I've got right now as far as what's like booked. But what's like what's next for me? I'm just gonna keep playing music and spreading the word and kind of just building on me, man. Earlier this year, I was able to get some Haunt music and some Vator music in a shop in Santa Clarita. And so I'd like to kind of continue doing stuff like that as far as like almost like a distribution of not just bands I'm in, but that's probably the easiest way to start because some of those bands I have access to this discography, right, without having to like pay for the inventory. So that's another thing that I'm trying to toy with and mess around with, But right now I got a lot of music gigs to worry about. I just got to remember how to play the right notes for the time being.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you definitely have a lot going on, and so basically, I'm excited to hear you guys play tonight. And
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely glad that Void Vator is playing another show, like in the LA vicinity at least, so soon after um, you guys have already played a show, because normally you have to wait like months.
Yeah, it kind of worked out that way. Two of the bands that are playing, Raider, they're from Canada, and Warhead, they're from Arizona. I've known the guys in Warhead since that time of going to Loaded, and I think I met Nolan and Sam. Their bass player is named Sam also. I think I met them in 2014, 15, something like that.
Wow.
So it'd be cool to see those guys again because it's been a long time. And
Oh yeah, sure.
uh, last couple times, Void Vator's gone to Arizona. We haven't had a chance to link up. So there's definitely been times where we've, thrown down at Yucca Tap Room in Tempe, Arizona, and jumping off the roof at Bubba's house. And so we've done some damage together. So it'd be cool to see everybody again.
I bet. I bet. Okay, well, I'm gonna let you go ahead and get ready, and I'll see you tonight.
All right, Maria. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate
No
you.
problem. Thanks for being on my show. Bye.
Yeah, take it easy.